And we are live. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Global Citizens. My name is Calvin. I'm the show's creator and host. So my guest for today is Mr. Erik Ingvoldstad. Erik is actually of Norwegian descent, but he has lived in multiple parts of the world, such as Shanghai in China, in Singapore, which is where he's currently staying, and in Australia. He is the Chief Experience Officer of Edenbol and at the same time of multiple other companies like Acoustic. Yeah. So, Eric, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. Did I do enough justice for your introduction or
No,
anything I can
it's
add?
it's it's perfect. I don't have any need to to talk about myself in terms of what I do, but I mostly focus on my time on Edenbol, which is a fintech startup.
All
So
right.
which is a Norwegian company, but we have our in a design and innovation department here in Singapore. So we do user experience work mainly. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so the reason why I invited Eric for today is because recently there was a viral post. I believe it was an air stewardess or somebody in the executive class who was posting a video about a photo about complaining of Nasi Lemak. Now, it's not a national dish, but the thing is that it's considered one of the signature dish of those who, if you are living in Singapore or if you're from Malaysia, where the food comes from, it's something that is like, in a sense, it's a sacred. And this woman went to rant about it all over social media. And afterwards, she did a second post in order to rectify what she did. So Eric was actually somebody who defended about Nasi Lemak, and I really love how he commented, which is why I invited him to the show. So thanks for that. All
Yeah.
right,
No worries.
all right. So my very first question is actually going to deal with an issue that I think it's will always be prevalent in any part of the world. Yeah. So before the start of the show, I posted on my stories like a post of Nasi Lemak, how it's going to be depicted in multiple form of marketing. You can check it out later, or I will send it to you. All right. So with regards to that, my question is going to deal on racism. So what do you think could be done for others to instead of just immediately assuming when you meet somebody who is not from within where you are from, somebody from outside your country, for people to stop assuming or for them to immediately accept others of external somebody come from externally.
Yeah, this is really tough, and I think first of all I wanted to say first that I think racism is the biggest problem that we have in the world. I think if we can solve racism or any form of prejudgment of people based on their race, nationality, sexual orientation, gender, or whatever it is, we have that's where we can move forward. And I really think that the best way of doing so is meeting people from other countries, from other experiences with different cultural perspectives, and learn from them and listen to them and understand where they're coming from. Like we talk about these cultural differences that we have, but really we don't have that many cultural differences. We have cultural differences on a very micro level, and on the macro level we're human beings and we're all the same, and we laugh and we cry and we it's very minuscule. And my now 10 years living abroad has learned me taught me that if we focus on the differences, we can learn from the differences, but if we just focus on them, they're not going to bring us anything. But if we focus on the similarities and then we go, okay, but you're almost the same as me, and you're different, you're a different person, of course you're different. I think that brings us much closer. At the same time, I guess you have to be respectful when you come to a new country, and I think you have to listen more than you speak. And that's really hard when you come into like when I first came to Singapore, I came into a management role. My job is to tell people what to do
Yeah.
and do things. And I come with a preconceived ideas on how to. At the time, I was working in advertising and as a creative director, and it was my job to push people. But I had different expectations from them than they had from themselves, and I think that was the hardest part for me. So I expected people to come and show me their work and be proud of their work and fight for their work and all of that. But in Singapore, I think the culture was a little bit different in terms of they were expecting me to tell them what to do. And that's the kind of, like, work-wise, the biggest cultural clash that I had. And I think we worked it out over time. It wasn't like they changed everything and I changed everything. We both changed a little bit, and we all kind of. And I think I tried to give them more courage to believe in what they believe in and be themselves and be true to themselves. And I think that's really important for yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really answered the question, but all this racism thing is like the people who are racist people. They are really narrow-minded, and they have really no experience in meeting people. And I think in Singapore, we don't have time for that. I mean, we don't want to spend our days talking about this guy, this, it's not about that anymore. And I think I have a son who's multi-mixed. He's mixed over 3 generations. And I like to call him post-racial. It's like we're moving into this post-racial society where it doesn't matter anymore. It is who you are that matters. And there's some cultural things that we can celebrate from all of the ethnicities that we have.
Your son is, you mentioned, is multiracial, right? So he's a third culture kid. Am I right to say that?
Yes, he's born in Norway, but he's quite young. He's only 6 years old. So he's proud to be Norwegian and Singaporean at the same time. But obviously he lives in Singapore, and Singapore is his cultural home. So yeah.
Yeah, not to worry. All right. So for those of you to watch in for this channel for the very first time, Global Citizens is a show whereby I hosted those with multicultural backgrounds, such as third culture kid, expatriates, nomads. Maybe they're, even though it's not often nowadays, it's immigrants, those who move into a country, change their nationality. Maybe it's because they got married and etc. The reason being is that when you are visiting a country as a tourist on a holiday, you are there to experience a culture, yes, but the thing is that you don't accept that culture, because these individuals that I mentioned, they need to be able to adapt to this. They need to accept all of these multicultural differences where they are going to in order to adapt. Mostly it's because, well, if they set up a career there or if they have a life there, and if they don't know how to interact, like how Erik has been doing wonderfully in Singapore, then you're pretty much screwed. So I'm glad you mentioned quite a lot of stuff earlier, Erik. The reason being is that they are actually the basis on a lot of the follow-up questions.
Good. Can I just say,
please.
I meant to say this before you said this. I don't consider myself an expatriate. I never have. Yep. Although when I moved to Australia, I was there for a limited time. The first time I moved to Singapore, I was here for a limited time. I'm an immigrant in this country. And I see myself as an immigrant in this country, and I treat the people around me as if I'm an immigrant in this country. I hate this idea that there are this expat community that people want to be part. I can't understand why you would come to Singapore and want to be part of an expat community. You can have other European, American, Australian friends, by all means. But why would you want to be part of that community? You want to be part of the Singaporean community. That's why I'm here. You know?
Or at least integrate the community.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So my follow-up is this, Erik. So throughout your time outside of Norway, what do you believe behavior or habit do you feel has most improved your life when you are in a new country?
It's very tough to evaluate yourself through that lens. I think the core Erik is still the same person. I don't think that has changed, but I think maybe I'm a better listener than I used to be. Maybe I'm a bit more sensitive to other things, and I try to read a lot, and I try to understand a lot. and I do make mistakes all the time, of course. Even after 6 years in Singapore, I make mistakes in terms of cultural sensitivities. Luckily, in Singapore, people are used to people like me, so we laugh it off, and then we learn from it, and we kind of move forward from that. But yeah, I think this kind of, maybe I was a bit when I was, and this is an age thing as well. I'm getting older, and I'm hopefully learning.
Age is just a number, my friend. Age is just a number.
No, but experience is a great thing, and I think
Yeah.
being a bit more respectful and not being a bulldozer all the time, but trying to kind of understand people and where they're coming from in a more sensitive way. I think that's my. Yeah.
All right. Have you ever encountered a situation of a reverse cultural shock? So basically, maybe you met somebody who is a Norwegian, and then afterwards, when you're interacting with maybe a group of them, they find you odd, or as a result, you feel excommunicated out of your own roots.
Absolutely. So I said that I was in Singapore for a year, and then I moved back to Norway for a bit, and
Yep.
I found that really hard on multiple levels. I think in a workplace, especially. I came home, and I worked for the same company so I worked for the same company in Norway. I went to Australia for the same company. I came to Singapore for the same company, and back to Norway again for the same company. And I saw my colleagues, and these are lovely people, but they're sitting in the same spots they were sitting when I left 4 years earlier, doing the same jobs. And I was like, and this may sound a bit elitist, but I felt that I had developed so much, I had grown so much, that I maybe I was a bit hard on them, and work culture in Norway is very different from Singapore and Australia. It's like people go home at 3:45 because they go to pick up the kids from the daycare, and that's great. I love that people take that family thing seriously, but it's just very different from what it is here. So I found it hard to live in Norway. Obviously, I have family there, kids there, and everything. So I'm there. I'm probably there 4 times a year now. So I'm getting better at it. But people who don't have the same experiences as I have, they may treat me a little bit differently. But at the same time, again, I think I used to be a little bit of I used to have a saying that was like, "Love me or hate me, but don't be in between." I think I'm a little bit, more.
I have a different saying on
right
that. Is you can like me, you can hate me, but don't ever disrespect me for me being capable of who I am. Right?
Right. No, exactly. So, but I think like now I'm more of I change myself a little bit, and I try to be a bit less judgmental immediately. Yeah.
So at least, but how do you feel you have done? What kind of measures have you done to make sure you stick true to who you are? As part of your roots.
So, for instance, the one thing that I use as part of who I am as Erik is humor, and Singaporeans may not always get my sense of humor.
Don't worry, I'm not going to change. They've never gotten my sense of humor until I reach around 16 to 17, because it's a little bit too crude for their taste.
Yeah. Well, but I'm not going to change that. I'm going to make jokes. I'm not going to be, try to make people laugh, and sometimes I make inappropriate comments and stuff like that, and then we laugh it off. I think that for me has been really important. I think the fact that I went to Australia first, which is culturally more similar to Norway, especially when it comes to humor. Like you can joke about people and they don't take offense. In the US and other places, you never know. People can be really offended by what you say, and I haven't had any like major problems with that in Singapore yet. So we'll see. Hopefully, it's okay.
If the cough doesn't bust through your door, it's fine. All right, I'm just kidding on that.
Well, no, but it's. You make different jokes and you're but I think that's who I am, and I got to be true to that. But
Indeed.
then again, the mostly change is the listening part and trying to understand people. So if they say, "Hey, that was not okay," I felt really, then I listen to that and take that
Yeah.
moving forward.
All right. So now I actually want to dive a little bit more on your expertise of industry niche. So you mentioned you are currently now focusing more on Edenville, which is a
Mm,
fintech startup company, right?
mm, mm,
So how do you see the growth of innovation and technology in Asia? And yeah, the reason being is this: I recently came across. I was in Draper Startup House. At that time, they were still called Tribe Theory.
mm,
So there was one person who asked me at that time is, how do you see technology? How do you see people adapt to technology? I mean, if it's a technology such as an automated lock like what they're doing in South Korea, I think it's something that is an easier adaptable technology
mm,
because
mm.
it's visible. It's in front of you. All you have to do is learn how to press numbers and then tada, you open the door. But
Yeah.
when it comes to fintech, it is more towards blockchain related. It is not something that is visibly seen. It is data. It is data. So people can't see the immediate effect, or in fact,
Mm,
they might have a lot more paranoia, such as maybe how you can use this as a phishing, or people can use it in order to extract important information to attack you. How do you feel on that, Eric?
No, I think first of all, I don't come from a technology background, so even though I've always loved technology and I'm a big fan and user of technology, um, my approach to technology and innovation is always about human centricity. It's always about solving problems, and I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that we're making in innovation.
Yeah,
And I've spoken at innovation hubs and stuff like that, and told people you're doing it wrong. This is not how you do innovation. You don't put people in a room and say, please innovate. You listen to what the
yeah,
customers are struggling with. The customer is not going to provide you the answers, but they're going to tell you about their problems. And problems is the source of innovation and change. So, so by understanding what is it that people are struggling with, how can you solve that? And maybe technology is the answer. Maybe it's not. I really don't care about that. I don't care if technology is the right thing. Usually it is. Usually we're in this lucky situation where we have better and better technology that can do things. You mentioned data, and I think the power of data is right. It's not visible to the end user, and it shouldn't be. They don't care. They care about you providing them services that are faster, more intuitive, more easier to understand and use, and to solve their problems, whether it's in business or it's in the personal life. That's what it's all about, and that's why you see some startups are more successful than others. Those are the ones that have fulfilled an actual need that people may or may not know that they had that need, but you fulfilled it,
yep.
and that's when you get successful.
All
So
right.
so so I think, and I think that's more general than specifically in Asia. Um, I think we're getting to a point where there's too many technology prophesists who are talking about this amazing technological future, but they forget to focus on what does it do for me, and I think we
Yeah.
should talk more about that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. With regards to that, yeah, how do you think those within the Orient Pacific region, so basically like Southeast Asia or outside of Southeast Asia, could be a lot more accepting towards innovation-based work? So the thing is this: I was living in Singapore for 15 years, and the thing is that I used to work for a school that teach public speaking.
Mm,
One of our key tagline that we like to use is because in Asia itself, public speaking has never been a prominent thing.
mm,
Like for example, show and tell. It's not something that we promote. It's something that we dominantly do. It's more towards we are more towards more curriculum based learning or essays written. So when it comes to our Western counterpart, on the other hand, like in the US, show and tell is a really common thing. So they are
mm,
used to it. They are used to be more confident on stage. They are used to be much more dynamic in how they speak. Whereas for us, is that it's not something that we commonly do. So as a result, when we created schools like this, it's not an easy catch up. It's because they, like maybe in the US, have 60 years of advantage over those the in the Orient Pacific itself. So sorry, let me get back to the question on that. Is that
Mhm.
how do you think those within this Asian region could be a lot more accepting towards the ever changing world? Because people will always stick to what they know, right?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things here that we need to fix. One is that we need to have a society that opens up for creativity. And by creativity, I mean something other than just solving technological problems. We need parents, we need teachers, we need universities and polytechnics and JCs to understand that creativity is the force of the future, more so than technology. Technology is going to come, but
Yep.
creativity is going to drive it. And I think that's really something that is a huge challenge. Um, you know that how Singaporean parents or Asian parents often, they drive their kids really hard, and you got to study this and you got to study that, and then all the
Yeah.
exams, and it's
Unless
really
you become a
focused on that.
doctor,
And
lawyer, or something
exactly,
around
if you
that,
want to be a
it
doctor,
will flexible for
lawyer,
that.
and if you want to work in finance or something like in a bank or something like that. But the thing is that we don't know what the most important occupations of the future are going to be. We have no idea. So we need people to develop these creativity, and I think we're getting there. I think what I've seen the last few years in Singapore, I think, is that we're moving in the startup world. We're moving from the first to the second wave of startups, and I find it really interesting. So the first wave of startups was really about taking something that was known and implemented it into the market, right?
Yep.
So you look at someone like Chope, who took a concept from the US of booking tables and making it work in Singapore. It's great, but they haven't really invented anything new. They've taken the concept, grabbed the same thing. They saw what's going on with Uber and all of those kind of things, implemented it in a great way in the region, and it's become a unicorn several times over, and
Yep.
it's hugely successful. What I think we're going to see now is that we're going to see new ideas coming out of this region, things that people haven't thought about before, solving problems that we really haven't understood before. And maybe, hopefully, also something that's more local, that's more attuned to the way of life in the region. And I'm really excited to see that. I think this is an area where collaboration between nations and between regions is really, really important as well. I do think that we as Westerners have a lot to learn from Asian way of executing stuff and getting things done. And then maybe the other way around, we can teach something about creativity and kind of thinking. God, I hate this expression, but thinking outside the box. You know what I mean? Like solving
Yeah.
problems in an unconventional way. I think that's
I
important.
can relate to that because the thing is that I've actually been back to my hometown in Indonesia for now is around a year. So
Yeah.
the thing is that when you're living in here, is that the people are a lot more subjective, whereas in
Mm.
Singapore there's a lot more objectivity. So like let's say let me tell you, I was once in a meeting. So my parents actually bought a franchisee and they put me in there in order to attend the general meetings and everything because that way we can have more productivity.
Mm.
So it was a 5 hour meeting. Let me repeat, yeah, 5 hour meeting. The first 2 hours is not even a meeting.
Right.
It is bonding session of
Yeah.
an event that happened yesterday. So it's mingling around for no other reason, and the actual meeting is only 30 minutes. The rest of the
Right.
remaining time is they're telling us about some kind of new ventures and whatever new potential investment. And I was like, okay, this is a waste of my time. And I was flying off the night after that. So I'm like, please get me out of here. So I
Yeah.
think in terms of how we can be a lot more objective is something that a trait that in Asia can adapt from the Western side. Whereas for the subjectivity, it's something that could be applied to a corporate culture. I know Sir Richard Branson is a big fan of using a more Japanese-based approach. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think again, this is an area where I'm also really bad at. I'm not a great small talker. I'm not very patient in long meetings. I'm a cut to the chase kind of guy, which is not always the right approach. And sometimes you just have to kick back and listen. And we many Westerners, myself included, have a tendency to get a bit awkward when things are nothing is happening, or it's like we're expecting things to happen all the time, else we'll just go home or have a beer or something, and I think that's the patience is something that to allow for that, because I think trust comes through those, sitting through that 5 hour session. I'm sure it's about gaining trust and understanding,
Yeah.
and if you just cut to the half an hour meeting, you're not going to get there. So
Yeah.
this is a thing that I also need to continue to learn and be open to.
Okay. Have you ever actually encountered? I don't like to call it failure in this show. I don't. We don't call failure a failure. We call it
Mm.
a learning opportunity. So, have you ever encountered a good learning opportunity from due to the cultural differences? I mean, Norway, from what I know, from what I've ever read about here, is that
Yeah.
Norway has a lot more relaxed culture. I mean, like if you go to Shanghai, they definitely do not want that. It's because the people is like 10 minutes of bonding and then let's get down to business kind of mindset.
Mm.
And in Singapore, while some of them might be a lot more relaxed on the approach, it's still a nation that is driven by productivity.
Yeah. Look, I don't mind calling failure failure. Sometimes we fail, and sometimes failure is good. And if you can learn from it, I certainly have failed. Not sure it was a cultural thing, more of a market understanding thing. When I came back to Singapore, I started a new company, and I did it with a Nordic entity, and we didn't spend enough time understanding how we could offer something different. We wanted to offer something different. I think we did offer something different, but we didn't manage to sell it in a compelling way. And I think that's because we didn't really understand the market well enough. My previous experience from Asia was really um, served on a platter, if you will. It was an established agency who had clients. It had everything. Um, yeah, so I think for me, I think having that failure is a really really good thing. A painful thing, of course. You don't get through those things easy, but you learn from them and you move on. And I think now trying to understand more of what actually is going on in the market and what is it that people are talking about and interested in is more important. I quite famously left advertising by writing an article in Campaign Asia Pacific entitled "Why I Left Advertising," and it's basically that I don't believe in advertising as a form of connecting with people anymore, because we don't watch linear TV, we don't read newspapers, we don't listen to radio the same way we used to. So there's other ways of connecting with people, and again, it comes back to what I said previously. I'm a problem solver, and that's what I like to do. I like to solve problems and focus on that.
Wait, your article was it around 2014 or 2016ish?
Some So 2016, I think. Yeah, yeah.
I kind of recall that. I think I used it for one of my thesis.
So
I think I used it for one of my thesis.
people in Hong Kong who came up to me and said, "Are you that guy who wrote that article about?" And I said, "Yeah, guilty." It was
Go
my
back.
Jerry Maguire moment when I said, bye to the industry, and it wasn't necessarily the smartest thing I ever did, to be honest. It didn't turn into huge business opportunities for me, but for me, myself, it was a really important metamorphosis where I changed myself, and at an age where I was in my late 40s, and I was like ready to really. I had a 25-year rather successful career in advertising, and for me to break out from that was really important. It was hugely painful and led to a couple of failures, but in the end, I think it's led to something really good, which I'm in now, and yeah, so yeah.
Well, you learn, and wow, okay,
Exactly.
we are back full circle. I didn't expect that you're actually the one who wrote that article. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
recall that article quite well. I used it for one of my thesis. I think at that time it
It,
was for ethics in the workplace.
I don't know now, but at the time it was the most read contributed article in Asia, in Campaign Asia Pacific of all times. So it
Yeah,
was, it was quite in the industry, quite the ripple effect, I think.
indeed,
And
indeed.
funnily enough, people who are still in the industry, they always come up to me and say, "Totally agree with you," but they want to keep their job, so they won't say they won't say publicly.
I think the thing is that well, the thing is that one thing is yeah, I don't care what people want to say. This is my show. I can say what I want. So
Yeah,
the thing is
sure.
that I think one of the stigma when it comes to with a big corporation is that they don't want you to have a leverage over them. So they want you to follow a certain system. And those
Mm.
within the corporation, I don't think they have a negative intention originally. Maybe they
Mm.
just want to, that's what you say, they just want to keep their job.
Mm.
The thing is that how they do stuff is always based on how we always do it in the past. And the
Yeah.
second mindset is that, well, in the past, there has definitely a lot more leniency and a lot more lax in the system. It's
Uh,
because that's how they got there in the first place. So when they actually want to teach somebody, they realize that, oh my goodness, this is going to damage our job. We're going to have
mm.
what we like used to do might result in us losing our job. So we need to apply more regulation and system. And as a result, somebody within the bottom line would
Yeah.
have to learn to adapt to it. And well, if they don't adapt, they're gone, right?
No, I think the stupidest thing people say in companies and
Yeah,
as cultures or countries is to
yeah,
say, "Oh, that's not how we do it here,"
yeah,
because that might not be the one way you do it here now, but who knows what the future brings, and to be able to say that's not how we do it here, but hey, you're saying something interesting. Maybe we need to look at how we change things. And I'm not saying that from oh, I'm coming to Singapore and telling people what to do. I'm merely suggesting that by saying this is not how we do it, it is a way to protect yourself and the past, and defend the past, rather than looking to the future and see what does the future hold for us.
yeah,
And I like to take a more open approach to things and say, my role in at Edinburgh, where all of my co-founders have worked in banks, they've worked in Visa or MasterCard, they've worked as consultants in the payment industries. They're great people at what they do. And I have the privilege of being the person who says, why do you do it like that? That doesn't make sense. Well, this is the way we've always done it. Well, I think we should do it in another way. And here's my suggestion. And then we discuss it from that perspective. Then it becomes more interesting.
okay.
That's yeah. I love that. I love doing it.
Okay, so my next question is on something that is, I think everybody's okay. So, do you agree that having a strong bond is of the utmost importance for somebody to succeed more in their career? And how do you feel that, with regards to familiar relationship, would it not interfere with a corporate principle?
Hmm. So, in Norway, in my culture, family is very nuclear family oriented,
Yep.
meaning that the broader family is not so important to us. At least it was never to me. Um, And I think the fact that I was always so when I was a child, my dad worked for British Petroleum (BP), and we
Mm-hmm.
went to London when I was 6 years old. We lived a couple of years in London, and to me that was such a great experience. And I said I want to give my kids the same opportunity, and I took them to Australia and all of that. And I think you're right. I think this idea of strong family bonds is really, really important. I actually think that it sound counterintuitive, but I really think that living overseas has actually helped me strengthen my bonds with my family, both my family here and family in Norway and everywhere. It's like you strengthen those bonds because of distance, because of time, and I'm closer to like even aunties and stuff now than I used to be. And I think the other thing that happens is that you make your own families. So not just your actual family, but you live overseas, you make friends that become family or family-like constellations, people that you trust and you can talk to, and that is important too. So yeah.
All right. All right. This is actually my last question.
Yeah.
No worries. My last question is actually, okay, what three advices would you give to somebody now who is about to enter the real world or they are at the crossroads of their life? The advice can also be like maybe if a book that they should read, or maybe an audio, some videos that they can read or they can watch. Sorry.
Right. I think first and foremost, be true to yourself. I think whenever you go into a new role, whether it's you worked for a while or you're coming straight out of uni or whatever, I think be yourself and offer yourself into your job more so than just offer your skills. If you know what the difference, you put your heart and you put your who you are, your personality into it, and then people. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who can contribute. If I just want stuff that I can read out of a book, I don't need that person. Like I can read that book myself. Maybe I don't have time, but you know what I mean. It's like I want people to come, and especially if there's young people, I want them to come with something new, something interesting, something different perspective that we all can kind of benefit from and we can grow from. I think also to look at, like, as I talked about earlier, this idea that we don't know what the future holds. So this idea to be open for different things. If you do say that you study to become a lawyer, look at the opportunities that are there in the future and that are coming through different family constellation, if you do family law, or different technology opportunities, and what impact that has in law. I'm not a lawyer and I don't understand all of that, but I'm just saying that even if you choose a very specific line of work, try to figure out how you can contribute in the future. Lastly, and I think this is going to be obvious coming from me, I would say to every single person out there, if you have a chance to spend time working in another country, take that chance. Don't listen to the naysayers. You will have people in your life who will say, don't go there. There's this and this. China is like that, or India is like that, or Australia is like that. Don't listen to those people. Go, experience. If it's not for you, it's not for you. You can come home and you still have those experiences with you. But people who live overseas and learn from other cultures, I think, are stronger and more valuable in the workforce in the future.
Well, with regards to value, I think I will leave to HR to, or at least a company to do that. But yeah, I really do agree. I've grown up in Singapore for 15 years, and Singapore itself is a cocktail of multiple cultures itself.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, they have, by immediate ethnicity is Singapore is fourth, and along of that, there will be individuals who come from other countries to come in, and as a result, it forms a different mindset on how you approach a different kind of individual. So yeah, I really do agree on that.
Yeah, and I think it's like especially in Singapore, I think because we do have such a multicultural thing going here, and yes, there's a lot of this Angmo coming here and saying this and that, but I don't mind, and I really think if you just sit down and listen to people who say those things, and you just understand it, it really helps us all, and Singapore, how they talk about New York being a melting pot. No, New York is not a melting pot. Singapore is a melting pot. We really
Indeed.
have everything, and we really have culture mixed together, and we work side by side, and we live side by side, and it's the most amazing thing, and it's what I love the most about Singapore, next to the food, of course. So,
All right. And with that, that's actually my last question. So first off, thank you so much for those of you who tuned into this show. I also need to give a special shout out to the people who leave 2 thumbs up here, Mr. Brandon Chong and Mr. Nikhil. So if you guys don't know yet, this is a really cool. It's because the 2 people who leave the thumbs up are of 2 different ethnicity. They are Singaporeans. One is a Chinese, and another is actually an Indian. So yeah, as what Eric says, Singapore is a melting pot, and as a result, it is actually a unique ground for you to actually study cultural acceptance, because I think along with Singapore, the other area that actually can provide such environment is Los Angeles. But the thing is that Los Angeles, unless you're maybe in college, it's not something that you can see almost every day.
mm-hmm.
And oh yeah, so if any one of you are interested to ever try to do something like what I did, this podcast, you can use StreamYard. The link is in my description box. You'll get $10 off for your first ever try. And along with that, there's also a link to Canva, which actually allows you to create title cards. So with that, that's the end of Global Citizens, episode 28. Thank you so much for those who tune in, and have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much to Eric.